It happened at dinner right after the waiter poured the wine. We were sitting at a restaurant overlooking the river in Savannah, Georgia, the kind of place my mother loved because it felt expensive without being too loud about it. Linen napkins, low lighting, servers who spoke softly like volume itself cost extra. My mom, Elaine, tilted her head toward me and laughed, asking why I still didn't own anything impressive like my brother's penthouse. She didn't lower her voice. She wanted the whole table to hear. Conversations around us softened. Forks paused midair. My brother Ryan leaned back in his chair with a satisfied smile, like he'd just been handed a trophy. I stayed calm on the outside, burning on the inside, realizing in that moment this wasn't a joke. It was a reminder, a correction, a way of putting me back where they thought I belonged. So I waited. I let the laughter die on its own. I didn't rush to defend myself. I didn't explain. I just sat there, storing the moment away, because I already knew then that one day I'd say one quiet sentence that would change everything. And when that day came, the room would finally understand who had really been paying for Ryan's success. My name is Claire Whitman. I was 31 at the time, old enough to know exactly who I was, young enough that people still felt comfortable underestimating me. I worked in financial investing, mostly real estate-backed portfolios. Nothing flashy, no titles that impressed people at dinner parties, no stories that made strangers lean in, just numbers, contracts, long timelines, and decisions that only make sense years later. I didn't grow up in a loud house, but I grew up in a very clear one. There were rules, even if no one ever said them out loud. Ryan was the future. I was the stable one. He was praised for dreaming big. I was praised for not causing trouble. When he talked, people leaned in. When I spoke, conversations kept moving. Family dinners always followed the same rhythm. My mom, Elaine, sat at the center of the table like a host and a judge at the same time. She loved stories that sounded impressive, especially if they involved Ryan. My dad, Mark, stayed quiet, chiming in just enough to look fair without ever pushing back. And Ryan learned early how to perform success. He smiled at the right moments. He spoke with confidence even when he had nothing solid to say. People believed him because they wanted to. I didn't fight for attention. I learned early that pushing back only made things worse. If I corrected something, I was too sensitive. If I stayed quiet, I was so mature. Either way, the spotlight never moved. So I built my life somewhere else. I lived in a modest apartment in downtown Savannah. Clean, simple, no view worth posting. I drove the same car for years, wore neutral colors, and spent most of my time working or learning. My world was spreadsheets, early mornings, and decisions no one clapped for. I liked it that way. It was peaceful. It was mine. Ryan's life looked very different. New places, better views, expensive dinners he never seemed worried about paying for. He talked about properties the way people talk about the weather, casually, like it all just came naturally to him. My mom loved repeating his stories, sometimes adding details that weren't even true. She'd glance at me while doing it, like the comparison was the point. "That's what ambition looks like," she'd say. I'd smile and nod, because explaining never changed anything. By the time Ryan started talking about the penthouse, it had already become part of his identity, a symbol, proof. My family treated it like the final confirmation that he was exactly who they always said he'd be. What they didn't realize was that while they were busy admiring the view, they had completely missed who built the foundation underneath it. Once Ryan moved into the penthouse, everything shifted. Not in his life, in ours. It became the centerpiece of every conversation, even when it wasn't mentioned directly. My mom found ways to circle back to it like it was a family achievement we all shared. She talked about views, elevators, doormen, neighborhoods. She'd never set foot in the building, but she spoke about it with a proud little smile that said she finally had proof. Ryan leaned into it. He didn't say he owned the place, not exactly, but he never corrected anyone either. He'd say things like, "Where I live, parking is a nightmare," or "In my building, deliveries have to be scheduled." Every sentence carried weight because people wanted it to. His friends nodded, my mom beamed, my dad stayed neutral, which somehow always landed on Ryan's side. Then Samantha entered the picture. She had opinions about everything and volume to match. She talked about success like it was an aesthetic, the right lighting, the right address, the right man beside you. She praised Ryan in public and corrected him in private, pushing him to live bigger, look richer, move faster. When she talked about the penthouse, she said things like, "This place fits you," as if an apartment could validate a person. Family gatherings became unbearable. Ryan would joke about upgrades, maybe new furniture, maybe changing a room. My mom would nod approvingly and then turn to me. "You see, Claire, this is how people build their lives. You play it too safe." She said it kindly, which somehow made it worse. One afternoon, Ryan started talking about buying the place. Not seriously, casually, like it was already decided. He said the owner didn't seem very involved, just some investor. He shrugged, probably cashing out. Something in my chest tightened. I watched my mom's face light up. She asked questions, she imagined it out loud. She talked about how smart Ryan was for thinking long term. No one looked at me, not once. That night, I went home and stared at my phone longer than I needed to. I had a message from the property manager. Another update, another delay, more payments slipping past their due date. Numbers I'd been tracking quietly for months. I felt tired, not angry. Tired of carrying something everyone was standing on. I thought about saying something, a warning, a hint, but I already knew how that would go. I'd be accused of jealousy, of overreacting, of trying to steal attention. So I did what I'd always done. I stayed quiet, and I kept records. The turning point came when my mom finally said it out loud. "Claire, you should learn from your brother," she told me over dinner one night. "Women don't need to push so hard. Stability is enough. Ryan is showing you what real ambition looks like." I didn't answer. I folded my napkin. I smiled. But something inside me finally settled into place. They weren't misunderstanding me. They were choosing not to see me. And that meant the only way this was ever going to end was with the truth placed right in the middle of the table where no one could laugh it away. After that dinner, something inside me went quiet. Not numb, focused. I stopped hoping for fairness and started preparing for clarity. That's the difference people never notice. The moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you become dangerous in the calmest way possible. I went back to my routine. Early mornings, coffee that tasted burnt by the third sip, screens filled with numbers that didn't care about family politics. The property manager's updates arrived like clockwork, clean summaries, neutral language. Payments late, bills rolling forward, nothing dramatic, just a pattern that couldn't hide anymore. I didn't confront Ryan. I didn't hint. I didn't vent to friends. I knew exactly how that would play out. Words would get twisted, intentions questioned, emotions weaponized. I'd be told to let it go, to be the bigger person, to remember that family matters more than details. Details were my job, and the details were telling me the truth. Ryan kept performing. He posted sunsets and city lights. He talked about long days and big plans. Samantha amplified it all, turning his image into a brand. Every time I saw a new photo, I felt less anger and more certainty. This wasn't success, it was scaffolding, and scaffolding collapses when you stop pretending it's solid. My mom called more often. She asked questions that sounded casual but landed heavy. Was I happy? Did I feel fulfilled? Did I ever worry about being alone? Each question carried the same quiet judgment, the same assumption that my life was smaller because it was quieter. I answered politely. I kept my boundaries tight. I didn't correct her. I didn't explain myself. I let her believe whatever made sense to her. Behind the scenes, I made one decision and stuck to it. I would not expose the truth in anger. I would not use it to embarrass anyone. If the truth came out, it would come out clean, in the open, at a moment they chose, not me. When my birthday dinner was planned, I almost declined. I knew what was coming. I could feel it in the way my mom sounded too cheerful on the phone, in the way Ryan casually mentioned the restaurant like it was another trophy. But then I realized something important. This wasn't about protecting my peace anymore. It was about ending a pattern. So I said yes. I showed up on time. I dressed simply. I sat down and listened. I watched the way they leaned toward Ryan, the way the table arranged itself without anyone noticing, and I waited. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking into that room as the quiet daughter or the responsible sister. I was walking in with the truth, and it was heavy enough to stop the laughter cold. I didn't shrink. I didn't rush to defend myself. I took a slow sip of water and let the silence stretch just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable. I felt the weight of every report, every number, every quiet decision I'd made over the years settle into my spine. And then I spoke. "The penthouse," I said calmly, like I was asking about the weather. Ryan looked at me, surprised I'd answered the conversation at all. "Yeah," he said with a quick laugh, "I own it." The words didn't land right away. My mom blinked. Samantha's smile froze mid-expression. Ryan laughed again, sharper this time, like he was daring me to keep going. "Okay," he said, "good one." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. No shaking, no rush. I opened the property management summary I'd looked at dozens of times before. Dates, balances, late notices. I turned the screen toward him. "You've been renting it from me for years, through the management company. You're a few months behind, by the way." The table went silent in a way that felt physical, like the air had thickened around us. My mom leaned forward slowly, her mouth slightly open. My dad stared at the phone, then at Ryan, like he was trying to translate something he didn't want to understand. Samantha's eyes flicked between us, already calculating what this meant. Ryan's smile disappeared completely. "That's not funny," he said quietly. "It's not a joke," I replied. "You never asked who owned it. You never needed to. You were too busy enjoying the image." My mom turned on me instantly. "Why would you hide something like this?" she demanded. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something shift. "You never asked," I said, "and every time I tried to speak, you talked over me." My dad finally cleared his throat. "Maybe this is just a misunderstanding," he said carefully. "Ryan probably thought he'd catch up on the payments." Ryan seized on that immediately. "Exactly," he said. "I was going to handle it. You didn't have to do this here." I met his eyes. "Do what?" I asked. "Tell the truth? Or stop letting everyone pretend this was something you earned?" Samantha pushed her chair back slightly. "This feels unnecessary," she said. "Family things should be handled privately." I nodded. "They should," I agreed. "But this stopped being private the moment I was humiliated in public." No one laughed. No one nodded. My mom's hands tightened around her napkin. Ryan stared down at the table, his jaw clenched, the confidence draining out of him in real time. "I'm not here to embarrass you," I continued, my voice steady. "I'm here to set a boundary. You have 1 month to catch up or move out. No extensions. And I expect you to stop implying you own something you don't." My mom looked like she wanted to argue, but no words came. My dad leaned back, silent. Samantha avoided everyone's eyes. Ryan finally looked up at me, and for the first time, there was no performance left. "You made me look stupid," he said quietly. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I let you finish the story you started." The server arrived with the check, hesitated, and placed it gently at the edge of the table like she could feel something was wrong. No one reached for it. The celebration was over. The illusion was gone. We left without dessert, without photos, without pretending everything was fine. Outside, the night air felt cooler, quieter. My mom walked ahead of us, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. My dad followed, shoulders hunched. Ryan lagged behind, staring at his phone like it might suddenly give him answers. For the first time, no one asked me to soften it. No one told me to let it go. The truth had done what it needed to do. The days after that dinner felt strangely still, not peaceful, just quiet, like a room after a long argument where nothing else needs to be said. My mom called the next morning, then again that afternoon. I let both calls go to voicemail. When I finally listened, her voice had lost its sharp edge. It was tight, controlled, carefully wounded. She talked about family, about respect, about how things didn't need to be handled that way. She never apologized, she didn't need to. The silence between her sentences said enough. Ryan tried a different approach. First came the messages that sounded reasonable. He said he'd figure things out. He said he'd been under pressure. Then came the ones that carried blame, asking why I'd waited so long, why I couldn't have helped him quietly. I answered once, just once. I told him the deadline hadn't changed. After that, I stopped engaging. A few weeks later, the property manager confirmed he was moving out. The unit was left in decent shape, no damage, no drama. Just boxes, bare walls, and the absence of a life that had been staged for other people's approval. I didn't chase the overdue payments. I chose to close the chapter cleanly, not out of kindness, but out of clarity. Family gatherings changed after that. The comparison stopped. My mom watched her words more carefully. My dad started asking real questions about my work instead of deflecting. Ryan showed up quieter, dressed simpler, less certain but more real. We spoke occasionally, not like before. Better. I sold the Penthouse later that year and rolled the money into something bigger, something long-term, something solid. I upgraded my own life slowly and intentionally, without announcements or explanations. What surprised me most wasn't the money or the shift in power, it was the relief of no longer carrying a truth alone. I didn't win that night. I didn't defeat anyone. I just stopped shrinking to make other people comfortable. And once the truth was out in the open, everything finally landed where it belonged. Success doesn't need applause. It doesn't need permission. Sometimes the strongest move is simply standing still and letting reality speak for you. If this story resonated with you, make sure you like the video to support the channel, subscribe so you don't miss future stories, share this with a friend who needs to hear it, and comment below with your perspective or the key lesson you took away.